I'm Megan.
I'm Colin.
And this is Pet Sitter Confessional, an open and honest discussion about life as a pet sitter.
Brought to you by Time to Pet. Sometimes in business, you have to just push through fear because you have to. That's what's required of you as a business owner in that moment. Doesn't mean we're not scared and we don't want to move forward. It does mean that we have to make hard decisions. After nearly 26 years in business, Jan Brown, owner of Jan's Pet Sitting, has done just that time after time. Today, she joins us to share about how she does that, what it means to have excellent customer service, and why building relationships of a solid business.
Well, thank you, Colin, and thank you for inviting me. I'm just thrilled to be here. I've had my pet sitting business for 25 years. I started in 1996, 1997. I'm also a pet first aid CPR instructor. I have previously taught classes in starting a pet sitting business as well as disaster preparedness for pets. I'm fear-free certified. I'm CPPS through PSI. Just recently got my certificate, my basic certificate in human resources management.
That's a lot of stuff that you have on your name, Jan. Why was it important?
A lot of years.
Yeah. Why was it important for you to seek after those?
To become more educated in my field. The pet first aid, there was a demand for it. And it's also a way for me to teach my staff and get them trained in it. The CPPS, I wanted to learn as much as I can, and as well as the fear-free certified. And the human resources, I have an interest in that and helping other pet sitters. But also because I have employees, it helps me knowing what I can legally say or do or not.
Which is really important. And, I like about what you're saying. There's a lot of this information's out there. How can I be best equipped for that? And I can start applying it and helping my staff. You're an instructor for pet first aid and CPR. You could go and have them take a class, or you yourself could teach your staff. You can outsource a lot of HR, or you yourself can implement a lot of that in your business. So I think judging and going, where are my interests? Where are my concerns? And how do I see where I fit in that matrix? You didn't start off as a pet sitter in the late 90s, I assume. You had a before times of what you were doing. So what came before life as a pet sitter?
Before that, I was working in the corporate world. I was working for a biotech company doing admin. And I was thinking about doing something else, looking for another company, different field. I was even considering going back to school. And the gal who at the time who pet sat for me, her husband worked for the airlines and he had put in for a transfer, hurry up and wait, one of those types of things. And out of the blue one day, I said to her, if your transfer ever comes up, I might be wanting to pick up your business, thinking 8, 9, 10 months down the road. I come back from a trip 10 days later. She says, our transfer came through. Here's my client list. Bye. She had a very small business. Okay. She probably had 30 clients and she did a lot of overnights for her clients, but her clients were further south than me. And at the time it was all I could do to get from my home to where I worked, never mind doing additional drive time. So I let a lot of those clients go, but a few stayed with me.
What was that decision like? Because I can imagine being just kind of like handed of like, okay, here's a business. I mean, 30 doesn't sound like a lot, but that's still a lot to manage and getting to know them and everything like that. How was it taking on all that responsibility all of a sudden?
I'm relatively an organized person, but remember that they all didn't start calling me. This was, 25 years ago. So they weren't all just calling me. The ones that wanted overnights and were south, I let them go. I didn't do those. I just kept a very small minority of them. But people started to hear about me. And so then, someone at work one day said, hey, I hear you do pet sitting. I need help, blah, blah, blah. And that's just kind of how it started. And after about a year of working in the corporate world and kind of doing this, I finally decided to just take the plunge and do it.
It is a plunge, right? You reach that point where you're like, okay, like I'm either going to do this or I'm not. And so you have that decision. What was it that pushed you over into going, okay, this is something that I can do full time?
Part of it was ignorance. It really was.
Fair enough.
Because looking back now, I'm like, oh, you didn't consider this, or this, right?
Oh.
But I'd gotten to the point, I knew in the corporate world, if I went to another company, different people, it would be the same problems, different faces. And I was really considering at the time going back to school part-time, and I never did. I thought at the time pet sitting would be a way for me to get income while I was going back to school. I never did. And it just happened. After about a year, I'm like, I can't take this anymore. I'm quitting. I forget what it was. I think I figured in my head back in the day that I needed to do, I think, a minimum of 6 jobs a day to be able to pay the basic bills. But, I wasn't really considering things like estimated taxes and all that little fun stuff,
Oh, that.
But it was a start. It was a start.
Yeah, I think finding our motivations to start anything is hard.
Yeah.
And, starting a business, going out on your own is a big step. But I think a lot of times we forget that we start things, little things, every day, right? We start new ad campaigns. We start a new rebrand. We start new ad copy. We start new hires. We start new services. We're starting things constantly. And I think reflecting on those motivations really helps us to put a lot of that into context and keep us moving forward and continuing to do that, because we have to start if we're going to keep going. Now, you mentioned a couple times, this is all in the context of this being in the late 90s, and you're in the Bay Area out in California. So what was the scene for pet sitting back like then?
It was very different. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have Facebook. We didn't have any of that. Cell phones were just starting to come into popularity, and you didn't use them because back in the day, you didn't use them unless you had to. It was something like 45 cents per minute to use your cell phone. So, we kept those to a minimum. Our major form of advertising back in the day was the Yellow Pages. We didn't have all the online stuff or leaving our business cards somewhere. We didn't have things like Nextdoor, Craigslist, any of that.
When you reflect on it, how do you think that shaped how you continue to operate today? Because coming up in that kind of almost like it's kind of it feels very restrictive in today's environment to only have these outlets or only have these options of getting connected with your clients. What kind of things do you feel like you still like to operate based off of how you started back then?
I still believe a lot in the one-on-one interaction with the clients.
Yeah.
Yes, a lot of things are now done by email or that, but it does help to pick up the phone once in a while. I still want them, for the most part, for the new clients to meet me because I am the face of the business. So I try to do the meet and greets. Yeah, the Yellow Pages are long gone. I don't put flyers up anymore. I don't really leave, I leave business cards. I'm very select where I leave them. I don't leave a lot.
You mentioned one of the things about the cell phones and that level of communication. It was very costly back then. I remember when they started to get some more unlimited plans, those commercials that said "Mama had a baby, it's a boy." I don't know if you remember those. when those were national. That's one of the things. I don't have room in my brain for a lot, but that's still in there. And but what it forced, what you have to do in those situations is you have to decide: is this worth the phone call? Is this worth elevating this? Yes. to this other level of communication? And I think that's kind of something that may be a little lost because we have a riches of communications now. It's very cheap. It's very easy to communicate in 1,000 different ways.
Absolutely.
So how do you know when it's time to pick up that phone call and to make that to the client?
If a client has a complaint, I'm not talking so much a little minor thing, but if there's a complaint or there's an issue, I'm picking up the phone. I'm usually picking up the phone if I see a booking come through from the client in our booking system and it just doesn't look right to me. Like every so often I'll have a client that will book one visit. And yeah, we get that, client only needs a visit for one day, but I know the client usually, and I'll pick up the phone and say, is that what you really meant? Or are there other visits?
Yeah.
Because sometimes clients make a mistake. And yeah.
And I think that shows a lot of care and intent on your part that is really received by the client when you take the time to make that phone call. I think it's kind of progressed now where texting is the preferred form of communication. It's kind of important and more formal to make that phone call. It used to be you would, phone calls were the rage, and everybody, if you want to make an impact, you wrote a letter, all right, to impact somebody.
Well, it's funny. I, knock on wood, have avoided texting with my clients. I'll do email, I'll do phone calls. They can contact me through never really cared for texting. I do it more now with my staff, but even at the time, I kind of tried to limit it. But we get enough emails and everything. I don't want to be having to keep on top of text. And then I'm looking at this number and I'm like, who is this? Who's texting me about a thing? And, this is Susan and I've got 10 Susans, So I try to avoid that.
Yeah.
I just never got it started.
And again, I think it's understanding what is the purpose of this communication? What's the role of this with customer service? I don't want to inundate somebody with constant messaging. I want to make sure that when I am communicating, it's intentional and it's purposeful as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So beyond phone calls, how do you focus on that customer service aspect? Because I know that's an area where a lot of people get into business and they operate their business, and all of a sudden they realize, I still have to work with people. I can't just call the cats and have them pay me or whatever. Like,
I've had a lot of people in years past, other sitters, tell me that they got into this business because they don't get along with people. Well, if you don't get along with people, I don't think you're going to last too long in this business, because if you can't sell yourself and your company to the client, you've got to be able, even if the client's calling you with a complaint and you think the client is just full of it and you think the client's, way off base, you still have to call and you have to resolve it. It's all communication. It's, this is a people business. Yeah, we rarely, once we meet the clients, we usually don't see them again unless they happen to be home when we go there. But that initial thing, you've got to sell yourself to the client.
Yeah, it's one of those unintentional decisions that we make when we go into business of, this is now a problem that I am taking on, right? Me, as I'm running my business, this is now on my plate of things to deal with when it comes up.
Yes.
Yeah, I like. Yeah, it's a phrase I've heard before. It's not my fault, but it is my problem.
Yes,
like you said, the client may have complete baseless claims and be off their rocker, but you still need to deal with it. And I think very importantly, you said that resolve that, bring it to an actual conclusion within your power and ability, without compromising yourself and your policies. And that can be a hard line to walk sometimes.
It is. It is. I think as pet sitters, I think we want to please everyone. And maybe what I would have done for a client 10 years ago, I'm not as inclined to do it anymore. And I have to remind myself, we all have clients. It's like, I don't want to go there. Either it's a little too far or the cat's a hassle, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I have to remind myself that most of the time it's my sitters going to these jobs. I don't hear them complaining. But like earlier this year, I had a client that booked, and she booked with us before, and she wanted the one visit on one day of the week, her garbage day. She wanted us to do it in the evening so that we could bring in her empty garbage cans. And 10 years ago, I probably would have worked around it. But now I'm saying, no, we can't. It's different if we already plan to be in the area or something, but if it's a once a day, no, we can't. And in California, not every state's the same. I have to pay my sitters for drive time and mileage. I don't want to send them back out for just one visit for something like that.
That's where a lot of this, all of a sudden we start overlaying our different hats of the customer service side is like meet needs of customer, do what they want. And then this kind of operations manager comes in and is like, no, you can't do that. You will make no money. It's not worth the trip. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So I've had to say no a couple of times to things like that.
Yeah. That the scheduling of visits is tough because we tend to get the receipt of, the client requests, they may say a 7, a 2, and a 9. And my first instinct is to always go, okay, well, that's what the customer asked for. So we'll just book it and put it in. But taking that second step back and going, but does that fit? Can I make that work? Does it need to be those times, or did they just throw them on paper? Because a lot of times they just kind of throw them out there and like, whatever. And and remembering we have agency to, within reason and health of the pet and around their normal schedule, to make adjustments to those so that it is more efficient for us.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, especially with these days with prices of gas and everything. We can't just be going, I'll make one trip out there and it's, 40 minutes away. It's like, no, that's not feasible, right?
No, it isn't.
And it's a reminder that customer service isn't just about giving them what they want. It's about you still have to resolve while maintaining your business and its integrity and without sacrificing everything at the at their feet, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Now, back in the late 90s, you started with a goal of providing compassionate professional pet care services. Tell us about that goal and why that's important to you.
Well, if someone's coming in to take care of my cats, I want them to treat my animals as if they're their own. And I want to do the same thing for our clients' animals. It's plain and simple. I want to know, clients want to know that you love their animals just as much as they do. It was always there. I never really thought about it much. But we go in, we take care of those animals like they're our own. Even if they're a little squirrely or whatever. It can happen. But you have to kind of sometimes look beyond it. Like I just recently, I had a cat that's, we've taken care of this cat on and off for years. Not that often, but enough. That cat will never come out from under the bed for me. I went over last week. I don't know what changed. That cat decided he was coming out of the bed, and I sat on the floor, and he was my best friend. So, things like that. I had another cat needed insulin, and cats on insulin, they have to eat immediately before you give them the insulin injection. Yeah. This cat was not going to eat. I don't care. We tried True, we tried, Fancy Feast, you name it, we tried it. And he's just like, no. Finally, I figured out, one day I sat on the couch and he kind of looked like he wanted up. So I brought him up on my lap and he's laying there and purring away. And after about 5 minutes, I just thought, And the food dish was next to me on the floor, and I just casually picked it up, put it down in front of him. He's still on my lap. He starts eating. So it's a lot of it's just kind of finding the way to work around it.
That's where that compassion comes in. You have concern, right? You are sympathetic towards the plight and how somebody's doing or how they're feeling. That goes both for our human clients, that goes for our furry and finned and otherwise clients.
Exactly.
And it feeds into how we operate too, of going, if I don't come in through this door with compassion for those that I'm caring for, I'm going to act very differently, right? I'm not going to be concerned if they eat. I'm not going to be worried about this other stuff. I'm not. Right. And you stop meeting their needs.
So much can go wrong in a job. I always tell my staff, we are 1 second away from a disaster happening. That could be something like the cat got locked in the bathroom or whatever, but it's, or you just left that door open a second too long, all of a sudden we have an escaped animal, that type of thing. So you just always have to be aware, and you have to look at what can become a problem. What you and I, we probably wouldn't do a lot of things in our house, but we walk into clients' homes and I'm seeing these loose frayed cords or whatever. And I'm like, oh my goodness, get those out of the way, or the plastic bags,
Uh-huh.
And, we had a cat one time. Cat got a plastic bag wrapped around his neck. It was under the bed. Yeah.
Oh,
the sitter found him.
Wow.
Yeah. If she hadn't have looked under the bed, she never would have seen it. You just never know.
You don't. And it takes that level of attention. And sometimes you can be in a rush. Sometimes it's hard to teach these things to other people if you bring on staff, and recognize it's about paying attention. One thing for us is we sometimes care for people, but it's been increasingly people living in brand new home construction. And one thing about brand new home construction, those backyards are just filled with glass and rebar and all sorts of stuff. And it's like, what are we looking for? How are we focusing on this? Are we picking that up? Where are we putting it? It's all these little things where does that come from? It's because we care so much. And that's why we have to take time off. We have to share this burden with other people, because if we don't, no one can sustain that level of concern and sympathy for anybody for indefinitely.
No. And I mean, when you start doing this for long enough, you stuff's going to happen. Okay. I don't care. You can be the most conscientious pet sitter. Stuff is going to happen. And I've had more than one client kind of look at me, like, I explain why we need 2 keys, and they're looking at me like, yeah, right. And I've told a few clients, look, I can write the book on problems with keys. We want 2 keys, and this is why. And, but yeah, clients don't always, understand. They haven't experienced it. Some of the things I've had happen in my, pet sitting career, I learned from them. I never would have thought that would have been a problem, or, and then it's like, oh, okay. It's
for us, when we first started, we did, we would allow every other day cat visits. That was something that we allowed. Right. And that's a lot. I know a lot of people do that. Yeah. We encountered a few incidents where the cat was injured on the off day. It either was like one of them was running through the carpet and like ripped out a toenail and stuff and was limping. It was awful, right? Coming in to find that. And another one, a cat got stuck behind a door, and so when we tell clients, well, we require a minimum of once a day. I had a client go, why? It's a cat. And I was like, I know. That's just what we require. We've had these things happen. And he responded with, well, I've never had that happen to me. And I was like, I know. You've had one cat for 5 years. Yeah. I've seen hundreds of them.
Hundreds of cats for 25 years.
Exactly. But that kind of, again, kind of taking that moment to step back and breathe and go, okay, this person, they don't know. It's not their fault. They're speaking from their experiences.
Know. Yeah.
So this is an educational opportunity right now, and I have to take advantage of that.
I'm going to write a book someday.
These are going to be really good. Have you heard of Time to Pet? Claire from Acting Critter Sitters has this to say.
Time to Pet has honestly revolutionized how we do business. My sitters can work much more independently because they have ongoing access to customer and pet information without relying on me. I save hours upon hours of administrative time on billing, processing payments, and generating paychecks.
If you are looking for new pet sitting software, give Time to Pet a try. Listeners of our show can save 50% off your first 3 months by visiting timetopet.com/confessional. Jen, part of that, of the way you have those experiences, and when you talk with clients, I know in this industry we're told a lot that we need to be positioned as an expert and as an authority figure in your area. And what does that mean to you when someone says, "Are you an authority for your clients? Are you viewed as an expert to them?"
Mm. Yes and no, but I don't like to push myself off on my clients that I'm an expert. I will make suggestions, be it for automatic feeders or food, or if I think something's going on, I could be 100% positive this cat is diabetic, undiagnosed, but I will never tell that to the client. I will say, his excessive drinking of water or whatever it is are signs he needs to see the vet. It could be something serious. I will never, say this is what I think, but I suggest, and you have to be careful. One time years ago, I had a client that called me. Her cat needed some pill. I don't remember what it was. I don't remember what it was for. I want to say it was an upset stomach. And I hadn't worked for this client in several months. She calls me one day and she says, it was an over-the-counter medicine, I remember. So it was probably Pepsid or something like that. And she says, what is it I'm supposed to give to the cat again when he has an upset stomach? Is it Alka-Seltzer? And I'm like, oh, no. I hadn't thought of that one for years.
Oh, my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. And I'm not even sure if I remembered what the medication was. I just said, it is definitely not Alka-Seltzer. Do not give Alka-Seltzer. Call your vet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what I hear when you say that, Janet, is the big step for that is speaking up, right? And giving and having a voice for that pet and being an advocate for them when you have concerns. I think that, to me, that's one of the best ways. If you're looking of how do I get people to see me as not necessarily as authority expert or know it all kind of person, but to view me as someone to go to. Well, I'm going to voice concerns when I have them in a respectful, polite way, in customer service hat there. But I'm going to be bold enough to speak up whenever I have those concerns. We just recently had a dog that we were caring for 12 days while they were traveling over in Europe. And it was an older dog who had lots of little, those little cysts and those things that develop in older dogs. And we had one where it was like, this one is not looking good. And the owner wasn't concerned at all, but we just kept pushing and saying, look, here are photos, here are our concerns. And eventually he did say, okay, I think we do need to go and get that taken care of to the vet. But we could have easily had just said, okay, well, never mind. It's not a big deal. Yeah. But when you have that concern to say something about it, right?
Exactly. Because clients see, it's like when you have kids. You see your kids every day. You don't really notice that they're growing and everything, right? Yeah. It's the same way with animals. Their clients see them every day and they don't notice the subtle changes. And we come in, we haven't been there for 2 months, and I can walk in and I'm like, oh my God, this cat's lost weight. Something's going on, Yeah.
And it just takes that time, again, to be that advocate for them. And that's part of, I think, one of the responsibilities that I view ourselves as having of the owner is not here to speak up for them. And we have to do that. That's and it's not just, are the living conditions some way or whatever, but toys that they have, feeding regimes that they have. Again, we're not coming and saying we know everything. We can just say, hey, in our experience, have you thought of this? And that's all it has to be.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, now the inverse of that obviously is doubting yourself. And so I did want to know, Jan, if you've struggled with doubt as a business owner and as a pet sitter over the years.
Oh, yeah. Doubt that, am I going to have enough clients this month to pay the bills? Sometimes it's doubt about, do I still want to continue doing this 7 days a week? Come on, it's a 7-day-a-week job. Yeah. Sometimes I think, maybe it's easier if I do it all myself. It isn't, but those thoughts still go through your mind. I couldn't do this without my staff. I could not without my employees. Yeah. In the early days, the first year or two I could, but no more. It's, but yeah, I mean, I think we all have doubt. There still goes through my head sometimes when my phone rings. It's like, oh, what happened now? And we don't get a lot of complaints or anything, but there's still always that nagging thing in the back of my mind that something happened.
Yeah.
And it's just there,
I know for me, whenever I get that phone call, I start doubting, am I going to be good enough for this person? Are they going to choose to go with us? Am I going to be able to meet their needs? You still have those. Like, I think that a lot of that is just inherent in what we do because it is service-based, right? It's based on my staff, human performance.
Exactly.
And is that going to be enough?
Exactly. Yeah. I think any business owner always has doubts.
I think to some extent it's healthy because it shows that we are thinking and we're concerned about things in our business. Now, it can be all consuming. It can drive us to the point of inaction at times. But I think having doubts, at least about what we're doing, can drive us to make sure that we're always trying to do better, seeking out certifications, talking to the right people, going to conferences, really thinking through and hammering out our policies and procedures and kind of letting that fuel how we mold and shape our business.
Well, I think COVID was a big one for us as far as doubt. I mean, when we went into shelter in place, I don't think there was a pet sitter alive that wasn't scared. And I wasn't sure my business was going to survive. I mean, it was very scary times. Never had anything like this before. I mean, I survived the .com bust and the crash in 28 and 9/11 and all that, but this was totally different. And that's scary. All of a sudden, you've got all these jobs and the next day you have 0 jobs. Yeah. It's very scary.
But not letting that fear stop you, right? That's where that next step is going, okay, how do I assess the situation? And now what do I do about it? So for you in those situations, Jan, when you are doubting, when you are scared of the next step, how do you keep pushing forward in that?
Well, you have to, or you gotta, I know some sitters totally closed their doors and went on to do other things, and that's fine and great. You just have to. I was very happy. I was grateful for any client that needed my services. Oh, you need me tomorrow? Yeah, I'm there, that type of thing. But you just have to. And it started to get better, but you really learn to, cut corners. The day after shelter in place, I canceled just about any monthly subscription thing I had. Cancel. You just do that. But it got better.
Yeah.
One thing I did, I was thinking about doing this before COVID hit. I was noticing that the majority of our calls from new clients were for cats, not dogs. And so I was kind of toying with this idea just before COVID hit. And then when COVID hit, I said, we're not doing dog vacations anymore. We'll do cats. We'll do midday dog walks. But that's it. So, and that has helped because we don't have to go out there as late at night as we used to. Because here, I don't know about there, but here, the dogs 9 times out of 10 do not have free access to a backyard or anything.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Those 3 a days really do grind you up, and it really makes scheduling hard, and it makes it very intensive to know I have to schedule somebody for a 6 a.m. and a 9 p.m. And something in the middle. And to look at how do I take a little bit, and we're noticing the same thing too, Jan. It's interesting you mentioned that, like the new uptick in calls still to this day of cats. It feels like all the cat owners came out of the woodwork and went, what? We'll do this too. So we've been doing this 10 years. I've never had so many phone calls for cats in all my days.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. I love it because they're great. I can fill gaps in days. I can put them next to so I don't have standalones.
Exactly.
And you get a lot of flexibility. And I think that comes with deciding, what do I want this business to look like? How do I make this work? And for you, being in business for now going on, 26 years or so? still being able to adapt to those kind of things. Because I think it would have been really easy to just go, nope, this is what we do. This is how my business operates.
Yes.
So how do you encourage us to continue to be flexible and adapt to things and not get stuck in our ways?
That's hard because we all get stuck in our little routines and our little ways. I think a lot of times just being on some of the Facebook groups and just reading what other people are doing can give you ideas. Like it may work for you, it may not, but it's something to consider. Talking to other people in the industry, I think that's where networking comes so much in hand, because you start talking to others in the industry. They do things a different way than you. Hey, something might work there. Or they may give you an idea, or why don't you try this? But I think that's a lot of it. Your friends that aren't in the industry, they don't get it. They really don't. But other pet sitters do, and there's a wealth of knowledge out there. Just start reading some of the groups. You don't have to answer every single one. I sure don't. But I will say, I never thought about that.
Yeah, that is invaluable to just be in a Facebook group. I know, Megan and I, we have our own, but there are so many other wonderful groups out there where if you just are a fly on the wall and watch those questions roll through, you'll see things you never would have thought of or expected.
Yes.
And it's amazing. And I always like to, when I see a question, not jump in and go, oh, this is right, this is wrong, blah, blah, blah. But to go, no, what would I do in that situation?
Exactly.
Because it might not be pertinent to me right now. We see questions in there about livestock sometimes, or a lot of aquarium businesses or things like that. It's like, I don't do any of that, but it's still fascinating to think about.
Never thought about it. Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah. It's when we stop thinking about new things where those ruts start getting dug deeper and deeper, when we stop exposing ourselves to new ways of thinking, new thoughts, new processes, new people, new ideas.
Exactly.
Where we don't have anything but our old habits. And that's all we have left to sit back on. And that's not going to be enough to keep us pushing forward.
No.
I know for me, one of the things that I really struggle with in our business and just in life in general is I tend to get really focused on my needs, my wants, my tastes, my idea of what needs to happen, and forget that I'm serving other people's taste and other people sometimes. I know. We went through our big rebrand, and I was like, oh, I love these colors, and it was like, well, yeah, but what are they? Do the clients connect with them? Do the clients? So one thing I know in running a business, when it's so personal, is the importance of is getting out of your own way at times and recognizing that. So how do you manage to do that? And
it's hard sometimes. It really is hard. Sometimes I just have to remind myself that, I don't have to necessarily go out and do that visit, that I got staff that will do it. I try to take a deep breath, and I do not. If the client has called or emailed me and I'm reading this and I'm just thinking of every, 4-letter word in the book and everything, I do not call that client or respond when I'm upset. I'll sleep on it for, the night or something. And usually, or I may call another colleague and say, can you believe this? Blah, blah, blah. But then I eventually get to some resolve within myself on it. And then I can respond and everything's fine. I accept it,
Yeah.
It's hard sometimes.
It is to take that moment to just pause, sit, and reflect, and be okay with it. And I with writing or with responding, I'll write a response, not in the email, but in a different app, in a notes app, so I don't actually hit send. Because that's but actually write it out. look at that, what's going to happen, and then and just think and sit on it and reflect and go,
Yes.
is that actually what's best for me? And just talk through some simple questions to not be always reactive in the moment, but going, is this in the best interest of my business? What role is this playing in the customer service and the perceptions of people that have of me and my company? And start thinking a little bit bigger. So when I get really myopic, I do just, Jan, I love that. I'm going, I need maybe to talk to other people and just think a little bit beyond step 1 and maybe step 2, 3, and see where this would end up.
I have often found, especially in email, I mean, come on, we're juggling balls, right? Yeah. We come in, we're checking our email. We want to get through them real quick because we got to go on to the next job or whatever. And I will find that sometimes I misread the client's email. And I think the client's saying, I want you to do A, and I'm thinking, no way, no way. And client's really saying the opposite.
Yeah.
So I also have to go back and reread the emails because let's face it, we're all in a rush. We're doing emails. Let's crank out a few, get those off our plate. We're on to the next thing.
And that's where sometimes maybe a phone call would be better, right? After we've calmed down and collected ourselves, just to clarify, restating that back out and be like, you wanted what? A lot of times I'll misread things when they say like, don't let them out, or they say do let them out, and I think it says don't let them out, and I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why would they? And I start going off the handle, and then Megan will be like, what are you talking about? It says do. And oh, cool. That's good. They said that because that's what that needed to happen.
Oh, okay, next.
But funny. But there is that emotional side of the business of I am going to react to certain things. And if I'm not aware of what can trigger me or what can drive me to think certain ways or how I'm going to respond, if I'm not aware enough of myself, I'm just reacting and flying off the handle constantly.
Yes.
And that's no way to interact with a business or interact with your clients at all.
No, or even your staff.
Oh,
yeah. And that's a hard one, not to be reactive.
Yeah. And have that more level keel. It's not to say we can't be passionate or have those emotions, but it's really, what am I doing with them? How do I use those and not just be the person over here, going insane, basically. One of the things that I love, Jan, is that because you've been in business for so long, you have served some of the same clients for a decade or more in some instances. And that's not something that Megan and I ourselves have been able to experience. We've moved several times. And so I did want to know about that relationship and what it's like serving the same clients for that long.
Well, we get a lot of clients. I mean, we're in the Bay Area. It's not cheap here. We get a lot of clients that move away through the years, but we have some that have been with us and they've been very loyal. We've got some that through the years, they've gotten a little more, what's the word I want? I don't want to say picky, but maybe within themselves, there's stressors there. And now all of a sudden they want 3 visits a day for their cats when the cats really only need 2. And truthfully, the cat could have 1. And why can't you come 3 visits a day? That was never an issue when we started working for them, 17 years ago. But you don't know what's going on in their head either. But at the same time, too, clients are fickle. They get upset or something, they'll go elsewhere. It's nice when we have the ones that have been with us for a long time, because we know them, they trust us and everything. But people change.
That's a really good reminder, is that I think a lot about, that the pet's going to age and the pet's going to have different needs over that time period. Okay. But I've never really thought about the fact that the human clients, they're going to have changing expectations. They themselves are going to have different outlooks and expectations on you and what they want. And to now, I'm not talking to the same person that I was 5 years ago.
No.
And now I'm interacting with them differently. And there's a whole new dynamic there.
It's a whole new dynamic. Yeah. And, some of these clients, we're on 2nd and 3rd generations of their animals, and but they change. And you don't know what's going on in their head.
For you, when you're dealing with somebody who you're on second, third generation pet, they've been with you for years and years and years, are you ever afraid of saying or doing something that's going to make them leave all of a sudden and stop using you? Because I know that's a fear that people have of, wow, this is a long-term client. They've really helped my business out. They've been very loyal. I need to make sure I do everything I can for that person. How do you find that balance?
That's not too hard for me, because you're going to get that dream client, perfect client, and they're going to move away eventually.
Right.
Your top paying client, and, be it a midday dog walk or whatever. But I always tell other sitters, someone else, you're going to get someone in to replace that client, be it a couple clients or whatever. Yes, if they're one of your top paying clients, that's a chunk of money. If they travel a lot, it does hurt. But there's always going to be someone else coming in. And so I don't worry too much. I had one client just recently, longtime client, tell me that now she's getting someone else, I don't know who it is, to stay at her house because there was recently a fire here a 3 weeks ago. And it came kind of close to her house, not super close, but she's paranoid because the back of her house is kind of like a small canyon. And she's scared that if we're taking care of the cats, we can't get there fast enough to evacuate the cats. And I get that, but we don't offer overnight. So,
Yeah, still recognizing going, okay, how much am I going to, it all kind of boils down to, is what this person's asking me what I want my business to look like. Is that do I want to get into overnights just for this one client? Probably not. Probably not worth it. No.
It's too much. And you can understand, in California, we have to pay them for their sleep time also.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's just a cost wise, it's not feasible.
No. Again, back to this customer service, business operations, finance, all these things we're having to keep in constant balance. Right. And that's something that I recognize that clients don't think about at all. They're only concerned about the customer service side of things, because they don't have the finance department over here knocking at their door going, that we can't pay for that, or the operations over here going, the routes don't make sense over here. We are the ones that are just burdened with that to find that balance and how we're going to meet the needs of the client, given all the constraints that are on us.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that takes a lot of I think a lot of trial and error sometimes. It takes doing some market research, knowing your numbers, to know where does this line stop for us to meet the need of the client.
Exactly. I think too, when you first start out pet sitting, you want to offer everything and everything. We all did it. And then, after a couple of years, I would do some overnights. And after a couple of years, I'm like, oh no, I'm not doing this anymore. And now look, we're not doing dog vacation visits anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, if someone had told me even 5-10 years ago, we wouldn't be doing dog vacation visits, I'd say you're nuts. So we pretty much are predominantly cats now. 5 years ago, I couldn't have foreseen that.
And I know a lot of people have that mindset of, I can't do that because look at what I'm doing. And I think the fact of the matter is you can. If that's what you want and you have clientele for it, you absolutely can make those kind of decisions.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, with all the changes, and you mentioned 5-10 years that you've experienced and adapted to, when you look ahead to the next 26 years that you'll be in business and beyond, what do you see for what's coming down the road, or your hope for the pet care industry?
I want to see the industry continue to raise the bar, as far as us being professionals. And if we keep ourselves as professionals and put us out there, it's going to have an effect across the country. Just I don't know what the industry is going to change, be like in 5-10 years. I think it's going to continue. It's going to continue. But like when I started, I don't know if you have them there, but out here, when I started my business, you never heard of pet sitters doing dog adventure hikes, for example.
Yeah.
And now there's a lot of people that do those. I couldn't have even have fathomed it when I started my business. Just wasn't on my radar. So who knows? I think you're going to see, I think it'll continue to evolve. I really do.
Yeah.
But it's the professionalism. We are professionals. We're not the kid next door. We're not just doing this on a whim.
Yeah.
This is our business.
Well, and I like the personal agency that puts on us. It's on us individually at the individual level to make it
exactly.
better, to do better. And when we all are doing that, it helps everybody. I feel like we do a ton of client education off of what we do, how we do it, the reason why, the purpose for it, the benefits. I do phone calls probably 2 or 3 times a day sometimes where that's all I do what do you do? Why? and sure, do I hope that there's a day where I don't have to do that? Absolutely. But I know that there will always be somebody new and doesn't know and understand. That's fine. But the more that each individual person can continue to take those certifications, get the training, do the community involvement and education, that helps everybody. And we are able to do new and different things as we get those skills too.
Exactly.
Jan, I have really enjoyed our conversation. I'm so thankful for you taking time out of your day.
Oh, thank you. It's been fun. It's always great to chat with you.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And but I know that there's a lot more here, and people may have more questions and want to pick your brain on stuff. How can they contact you? See everything that you've got going on.
Sure. They can contact me by email at info@janspetsitting.com, janspetsitting.com. They can find me through my website, also Jan's Pet Sitting. And they can call me. Happy to talk to anyone.
Okay. Well, Jan, I'll have those links in our show notes and our website for people to get clicked and connected with you. Again, I'm very, very thankful for this time together, and I really, really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. You have a good day, Colin.
My biggest takeaway from my conversation with Jan was the importance of being self-sufficient. Not that we have to go it alone or that we are alone in our business, but we need to be equipped with the tools, knowledge, and understanding of our business and how it operates. And importantly here, if we have an interest, we have a proclivity to do one thing over another, to invest in that. If we want to be involved in education, be certified to teach more things for your business. If you want to be more involved with HR or finances or taxes, go and get those certifications, go and get those education and classes to do those better in your business. You'll be more happy and your business will be better run for it. We want to thank our sponsor today, Time to Pet, and thank you so much for listening. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll be back again soon.